I picked this movie because when we were discussing Tropic Thunder last week, this idea of the facade leader came up, and we were talking about people who they don't understand, they don't take in reality the way it is. And the example I gave that just came top of mind, I go, it's like Buzz Lightyear, you know? So this is the Lead Out Loud podcast. We are talking today about Toy Story 2. I am Professor G. I have with me today Corey the Coasterman.
Oh, yeah. Excited to be here, Sean. It's been too long.
And Brian. So, Brian, you're going to need some kind of like mononymous name. You know, Kevin's got Kevin Ovation, all one word. I think we hyphenate. Or did he tell me not to hyphenate? Now I can't remember. I'm Professor G. Corey's the Coasterman. You know, what are you going to be?
I'll come up with something.
Okay.
I'll give it some thought.
I don't think I said it yet, but our movie today is Toy Story 2. I chose Toy Story 2 instead of any of the other Toy Stories, in part because that's what ChatGPT recommended. I couldn't remember the plots of each one, so I had to get a little bit of help there. Buzz Lightyear came up in our discussion of Tropic Thunder, so I thought this was a good progression. It's also, you know, sort of continuing in a discontinuous manner our Tom Hanks theme, although that was by coincidence in this case. It was intentional before. So let me... the reason Toy Story 2 kind of came out on top was because it's not Toy Story 1, so we get a little bit of character evolution compared to that one. I liked some of the plot points, and I thought there was some good leadership stuff from Toy Story 2. And we also still have this Buzz Lightyear 2 character that sort of throws back to where Buzz Lightyear came from and what his perspective used to be. So as I do, I'm going to kick us off with a summary of the show, of the movie. This is the show. For those that either have never seen Toy Story 2, or maybe it's been a minute. What? Corey the Coasterman had never seen Toy Story 2?
Never seen it. I watched it last night with my kiddos. It was awesome.
Okay, well, very good. Did you watch Toy Story, the original Toy Story first?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You know how sequels are. They're always bad.
Did you go through the whole... If it's not a trilogy, what would it be? A quartet?
We'll add that to the list of things to come.
All right. Okay, well, good. I'm glad that we were able to introduce you to a new film. So, for those that still have not seen it, or like I said, it's been a while, Toy Story 2, released in 1999, back in the 1900s, isn't just a sequel. It's a masterclass in identity, loyalty, and the kind of leadership that puts purpose over ego. So sometimes when I give ChatGPT the prompt to infuse some, leadership elements, it goes a little over the top. That was one of those cases. It is directed by John Lasseter and voiced by icons like the aforementioned Tom Hanks, who plays Woody, and Tim Allen, who voices Buzz Lightyear. The film introduces new characters from the first, like Jessie the Cowgirl, played by Joan Cusack, and the scheming prospector, voiced by Kelsey Grammer, thus expanding the Toy Story universe while raising the emotional and thematic stakes. Again, that's a little dramatic, but we'll take it. The story kicks off.
You said there'd be stakes?
Yeah. No, sorry, AKES. So you're on your own. On your own for dinner. The story kicks off when Woody is stolen by a toy collector looking to complete a rare set of Woody's Roundup memorabilia. Woody's Roundup is the show that Woody, the character of Woody, comes from, although he does not know that. He finds it out in this movie.
By the way, Sean, when you say that, it makes me want to just say Newman.
I was saying that throughout.
Yeah, what a jerk.
only I think you have to do it like Newman.
Yeah, probably a little more Seinfeld like. Oi.
That's a reference to Seinfeld for those that didn't follow it, and the character of Newman. So
let's not forget Jurassic Park, by the way.
And actually,
nobody cares.
We just watched Jurassic Park not that long ago. So I haven't even gotten to that character yet, did I?
No, not Al. Nope.
No, I didn't get to Al. Let's see, am I going to get to Al? Nope. He was in the original version of this, not in the updated one. So Al is the toy collector that steals Woody, and he is voiced by Wayne Knight from Seinfeld and Jurassic Park. And I actually saw him in a Broadway show years ago. It was a comedy with him, and I think it was it Jason Segel? Anyway, it was very funny. But I digress. So Woody learns that he was once a television star and faces a classic leadership dilemma. Does he choose the safety and prestige that would come with going to a museum and being on display in Japan? Or does he return to Andy, where love and legacy live in the messiness of everyday life? And what ChatGPT kind of missed out on here is going back to Andy. Yeah, he's going to be the toy, the beloved toy that he gets played with, which is what a toy wants. But there's this risk that Andy will eventually move on, and Woody will just be cast aside and thrown away or put on a shelf. And so that's really the dilemma that he's faced with. Meanwhile, Buzz Lightyear leads a rescue team with Mr. Potato Head, Slinky, Rex, and Ham, showing what courageous, team-centered leadership looks like in action. I want to talk about that later. I don't know if I like ChatGPT's characterization there. From Jesse's vulnerable story of abandonment to Buzz confronting a delusional version of himself, I definitely want to talk about that. The movie explores how true leaders stay grounded in purpose, adapt in crisis, and lift others up along the way. Toy Story 2 delivers adventure and laughs, but underneath it all, it's a powerful exploration of what it means to lead with heart, even when the spotlight's somewhere else. And I think purpose is where I want to start. That came up in Tropic Thunder as well. We were discussing the various characters and this idea of being authentic to who you are. There was really only one character that was authentic, and the key to his success was staying true to the shared purpose that team had. And so here, I mean, if we do go back and start talking about, well, I don't know if I want to start talking about the group. We'll get to them. But, the group goes out to try to rescue Woody, and so they certainly had some shared purpose. But actually, I'm going to say I want to start with Buzz. Can we start with Buzz Lightyear? Is that okay?
All right.
It's my show. It doesn't really matter if you think it's okay.
I must say that Buzz has the worst situational awareness of any of the characters.
Great place to start.
Starting
say
right
more.
At the beginning, the first thing, he lands on the planet or whatever it was, and he's like, hey, there's no signs of intelligent life, without even looking around. Just like, come on.
Right. And then what happens? A bunch of life forms pop up around him.
Totally surrounded.
And of course, in that scene, it's the video game version of Buzz. But that's exactly who the Buzz Lightyear character is. And we see him then come back. So let me just connect the dots here. So as the team goes out to try to recover Woody, they end up in a toy store. And of course, there's this wall of Buzz Lightyears in the boxes. And our Buzz, who has already gone through a transformation and an awakening from the first movie, gets switched with one of these out-of-the-box Buzz Lightyears. And so then the team kind of now is faced with, okay, we've reverted back to the way Buzz used to be, which, Corey, is what you just described. I mean, let's talk about that a little bit, this idea of a leader who, you said he was oblivious, right?
Right. Definitely. And it's funny, when I got to the point where he's facing other Buzz, I said he literally faced his greatest problem, himself. And I think, as we all learn to mature and everything, we find out that the biggest problem in our life is us, or myself. My biggest problem is me. So Buzz literally faced his biggest problem without looking into himself.
I mean, I guess that's a good segue into, I don't want to leave Buzz yet, but there's also sort of this overarching hero journey that's repeatedly coming up. I mean, the movie starts off with an homage to Star Wars. They're kind of playing it up like we're in a Star Wars episode or something. Then you've got this relationship that develops between, or the storyline develops. So Zurg is the nemesis of Buzz. And there's a scene where Buzz and Zurg are fighting it out, and Zurg says, "I'm your father," kind of like Darth Vader and
classic
Luke. But I mean, I think we've talked before about, what were the writers doing? Was this intentional? Yeah, absolutely, that was intentional. I mean, they're not really making fun of, but they're definitely having some fun with, I think, the hero journey. And as most of these Pixar movies, it's just as much for adults as it is for kids, because I don't know if the kids are picking up on all that. But Buzz, let's talk more about Buzz. What I want to get Brian's take on, because you weren't here with us last time. So this idea of these people, I won't even use the word leader right now, but the people that just don't see things the way they really are. And we see that with Buzz. I'm going to call him Buzz 2, the one that's in the box. I don't know if there was a question there. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. I think it's interesting. I mean, I'll pick up on where Kevin was going. I mean,
Corey,
sorry.
or Kevin from last time.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was going to go
one of
where
the two.
Kevin. Well, I was going to go where Kevin went the first time. So, Corey, you weren't here 2 times ago for Apollo 13. Kevin made it a contest, right? And so Kevin had his top leader for Apollo 13, and so my top leader is absolutely Buzz. So, Corey, what you were saying is really fascinating, because there was a point in that sort of self-discovery, if you will, the discovery of the other Buzz. And it was hilarious because he just sort of like rolled his eyes and, face palmed himself. And he's probably sitting there, like, to your point, going, was I really like that? I mean, that's how I really was. Can you imagine if we would have run into ourselves 20 years ago? We might have a similar reaction to Buzz. But I think what's interesting
Definitely
for me,
here.
yeah, oh, without a doubt. And I think, Sean, for me, what's really interesting about Buzz is the real Buzz, not Buzz 2, but the real Buzz in my mind shines through as the one person who actually stays true to the ideals of the first one, what he learned from Woody, what he learned to be as a leader, and he won't come off of that, right? Like, people are questioning him and like, why are we doing this and why are we doing this? And you just keep hearing him say, like, this is what we do for each other. This is what we would do for us. I mean, he's the one guy, ironically, that is almost childlike in a good way in his insistence on, this is what it means to do this. This is why we are doing this. It's pretty amazing, to your point, compared to where he was and where we saw the out of the box Buzz at the beginning of this movie. Pretty fascinating.
The quote that I wrote down, the thing he actually says is, "Was I ever this delusional?" And he's referring to Buzz 2, who's the out-of-the-box version, basically doing all the things that he used to do. He was that delusional, and now he's realizing how silly that is. And Corey, that was a great point or observation when you said, yeah, certainly that I've done that. And Brian, you said, boy, if we look back 20 years, I hadn't even thought about that. I was looking at it more as, wow, this is so great that you can see the evolution side by side. But boy, how cool would that be? I mean, certainly if we put ourselves side by side, I know there's things that I look back on. I've talked about it before, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, probably was. what is it? Am I the asshole? Yep, I was the asshole in that particular situation.
I might stuff myself back in the box, right? Like, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Buzz calls. So even real Buzz, we see a little bit of it still with him. Like this, he's still got a little bit of that pompous facade. He refers to hot schmoes, he's trying to say schmores. He's like, because Woody's going to go away with what's the kid's name? Forgot the kid's name.
Andy.
Yeah.
Andy, thank you. Woody's going to go with Andy to the camp, and he's like, "Oh, you're going to go and have hot schmoes, and you mean s'mores? I know what I mean." Let's see. I was stalling before because I had set my notes far away from me, and now I have them, so I'm trying to catch up. Okay, so here again, we see an example of, so Buzz 2 not really, still doesn't accept reality for the way it is, but we see some of those examples where you got leaders like this that they end up succeeding in spite of themselves because sometimes they get lucky, and they get lucky often enough that they're able to continue on. And I thought the moment for him in this, or at least one of them, was they're on top of the elevator, and Buzz is duking it out with Zurg, and he's kind of got his back up against the wall, and the dinosaur flips around and flings Zurg off the edge of the elevator. He goes falling down the shaft, and it's like, well, Buzz just won the battle.
Yep. Yeah, I got a lot of Michael Scott vibes from him.
Yep.
Lucky by half.
Exactly. Okay, let's go to Woody.
Well, I got some more stuff on Buzz number 1.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Send it.
This is Bud and Woody. They both wholeheartedly take the initiative every time. They're there. Hey, you need this done? Let's do it. And they're 100% loyal to the team. One of the reasons I left my former position was I knew my boss didn't have my back because there's too many times that I stuck my neck out there and he didn't stand with me. So it was great to see that, Buzz and Woody aren't going to leave people behind.
Especially Buzz. I mean, he's loyal almost to a fault. Like, he's not very practical. They just kind of, I can't remember if I wrote this down. I was definitely thinking of it. He is the king of we're going to act now and plan later. He's
right.
just going to...
Lacking discernment.
Yeah. We got to go after him. Okay. And they just go. And then now they're out in the middle of nowhere, like even crossing the street, so they get into the cones.
Right. That was classic.
Which is a funny scene, just because I got a bunch of cones around my house right now. They're doing some construction. I actually got upset this morning because they were putting the cones out in the opposite order. Like, normally you would start a cone line from where you're going to begin to merge traffic over. They had started from the other side where, okay, this is how it's going to end up. So you end up coming up to the lane, and it's like all of a sudden, oh yeah, no, it's closed now.
Well, that's asking for an accident.
No gradual anything. Huh?
No gradual anything. Kind of like the cones in Toy Story 2 that are just sort of stretched across because that's where they drop down.
I dare you to go buy some Toy Story dolls and put them under the cones, just for fun.
Oh my gosh, that would be funny. I wonder if they would get it.
Challenge accepted.
That'd be great. So yeah, all right, Buzz, definitely loyal. Still doesn't quite always think everything out, but understood the mission. And so did the rest of the team. And I think that's why they end up like that. That's why they get success. Well, that, and it was in the script, of course. But
what? I put here that he paved the way for others to succeed. So he had his ragtag gang of toys going in to find Woody. And even when he lost all of them, he still made it happen. Even by himself. Came in and saved him right in the nick of time.
Now I want to contrast that with Woody a little bit, because where Buzz maintained the vision, maintained his eye on the ball, knew the mission, I think Woody he lost it a little bit. And I thought maybe we could dive into whether that was a very human thing to do, but does that mean that he was conflicted from the beginning? Because basically what happens, again, just to kind of recap this, Woody gets taken, and he desperately wants to get back at first, but then he finds all these other toys from this world he didn't know anything about. He finds out he's a hero in the show, and they kind of tug at him a little bit, going, hey, you're going to abandon us? If you leave, we're going to go back in the boxes because we're only good as a collection if we're all together. And so Woody actually makes the decision to stay with them instead of going back to be with Andy. So what's up with Woody? Is he lost?
I got the feeling that when they met up as the Roundup group, that was probably the first time he had ever thought there was a time limit on this relationship with Andy. I think he probably just thought it was always going to continue like this.
I think he knew.
But I guess there's a difference between like knowing it's 10 years down the line and knowing that it's going to happen in the next 6 months.
Okay, so was it a strategic pivot for him, or did he lose sight of the mission?
It's hard to say what the mission was to begin with. I mean, they're just toys playing with Andy, or
that's the mission.
If that's the mission,
to be a loved toy.
I'm laughing because I have a really simplified view of this.
Send it.
Well, and let me start with the end. So let's look at the two movies. So if you go Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2, the arcs of our two people we're talking about are two toys, Woody and Buzz. So Toy Story 1, Woody's down here, grounded in reality and love. Buzz is up here, and he's a TV star, and he doesn't know anything. All of a sudden, in this movie, here we go, right? And Woody all of a sudden becomes a little delusional. And so for me, the simple answer is, and you mentioned this earlier, Corey, sort of in a roundabout way, the best leaders always for me, and Sean's heard this from me a million times, are other-oriented. They care about others. Their mission ultimately is to do something on behalf of others. And if you think about where Woody was having his doubts, that he was getting the ego involved, right? Oh, I was a TV star. Oh, right. So he started getting the ego involved, where that was Buzz in the first movie, and now in this movie, all of a sudden Buzz is all in for, maybe to actually assuage his own ego, but I'm going to help everybody I can every time I can. And Woody was starting to go inward and get a little self-centered, and not in a bad way, but just self-centered. And so for me, this is a classic example of self-centered leadership versus other-oriented leadership. And you see it in those two guys, and I know we'll get to them. You absolutely see that in Stinky Pete, right? The prospector. He's got a whole different motive going on that is not about anybody really but his own comfort. So anyway, I just think it's really fascinating the way that you can look at the two movies and those two characters, and they've kind of flip-flopped for a little while. And then at the end, luckily in this one, they both sort of end up in that other-oriented leadership mode again. But it was pretty wild to watch. I hadn't looked at it that way until I rewatched it again last night, and I was like, oh my gosh. They are going full self-centered versus other-oriented.
There's definitely an element of ego that creeps in with
yes.
Woody. And here's my evidence, just in case anybody doubts this. He says, when he gets with the prospector and Jesse, he says, how do you know my name? They're like, everybody knows who you are. And so that starts this little path of him discovering. He's like in the Garden of Eden. He just ate the apple. He's now, his eyes are opened, and now he's kind of like, I'm kind of a big deal. And I think that affected him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He did not listen to Public Enemy in the 80s. He believed the hype, right? So you're not supposed to believe the hype, and he did. And somebody like a prospector Stinky Pete is very smart. He saw that and he fed that and he just kept feeding that because that he was going to have Woody do the work for him, obviously, right? Sort of undermining his own leadership capability. It's to your point, Sean. Like as an adult, you watch this movie and you go, "Oh my gosh, there's a lot going on here." I mean, kids love it, but there's definitely a lot in play that we've probably all experienced. And Corey, you said this earlier, right? You've sort of lived through some of that self-centered leadership before, and it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of get the feeling as I go through life that nothing ever stays constant. The relationships I have now are not the same relationships I had 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I think I realized this when I was celebrating our 10th anniversary, and like half the people that were at my wedding, I don't talk to anymore. And now that it's been 22 years, it's almost none.
And I wasn't there, but he does talk to me, so.
I know, right? So there we go. Yeah, it all comes full circle. But I think the thing we learn from that, as we see Woody, trying to make changes, is that Buzz is the one that pushes forward and helps Woody realize what he's doing and giving up Andy, and then helps Woody get back to normal and back to his old leadership self. So, like you said, they were swapping, and now that Buzz helped him get back.
I guess because he ultimately does go back, and then he saves Jesse too in the process. I had written down at one point, he's lost his way, changed his values. I don't know that he changed his values. I think he just got distracted by that ego moment. And Brian, to use your favorite language, became self-oriented instead of other. But then he snaps back into that mission and who he is when, hey, okay, the team's in actually, what was the exact moment? Was it when he realized that Pete was... No, he realizes Pete is Stinky when he already makes the decision, you know what, I am going to go with them.
Yeah. I mean, Pete's been sabotaging him without him knowing it, and then he does realize it, right? About
Right.
the television, the show. I think he also... It was an interesting scene, right, when he said, I'm staying, they left, and then, of course, right on cue, you've got a friend comes on in the background in the show, and for whatever reason, that's a trigger for him to kind of snap to both of your points, right? It's sort of like he kind of gets hit in the head a little bit without getting hit in the head with that realization, and then at that point puts all the pieces together about what's been going on with the prospector. And then to your point, Sean, I think that anger, I mean, it sort of almost propels him, right? He becomes much more other oriented, I mean, to the extreme, to risking his own
The switch
self.
flips.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In a big way.
Let's talk about the prospector.
Sure, yeah. So I wrote down some things. He was, the type of manipulative boss. He had an agenda, and he made it known, but the way he went about it was sneaky. It wasn't good communication with the team. And at the end of the day, I got the feeling that he tried to make Woody into something that he wasn't.
Use more words.
Yeah, so like going back to my former job, another one of the reasons I left was my boss kept trying to put me in this box that I don't naturally fit into. And I kept looking for other jobs around the company, and there was 2 or 3 that I applied for and didn't get. One of them I didn't want but got. But I just, I was like, I'm not supposed to be in this box. And literally they're trying to put Woody in a box to ship him off to Japan. So that really stuck with me because that was such a heartache for me for like 6 months leading to me leaving.
Meanwhile, the prospector's trying to talk him into it, going, "That's custom cut foam, Woody. You're riding first class."
Custom
Yeah.
cut, man. Yeah, exactly. But I kept thinking, like, Woody's not going to be happy being in a museum. He doesn't, we all know it because we've seen him interact with Andy and, the other toys. So, probably not going to be happy there if he's not in his lane where he's supposed to be.
I kind of wish Kevin was here because, Corey, now, since you put it just that way, I think we have to point out.
Are we going to channel our inner Kevin here?
We're going to channel our inner Kevin. We're going to channel our inner entrepreneurs here. I think there's an obvious metaphor of, okay, Woody could have gotten in the box, literally, gone over to Japan, been in a museum, and been revered, and had that position, that the fancy title, the fancy position where everybody's coming to see him, and he's where people aspire to be. But he wouldn't have been happy because he wanted to be a toy that is loved and played with and cared for, just like Corey, you and I did not fit well in the box within large or even medium-sized corporations. And so here we are, outside the box, I guess, literally, metaphorically.
I'm not in any boxes that I'm aware of right now.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm in a room. It's kind of like a box. I also thought that... So look, the prospector, he's devious. He's like the puppet master. He's behind the scenes, pulling strings, we don't even know he's being passive-aggressive until we find out later that he was being passive-aggressive because everything... We kind of realized that, everything he was saying, he had these ulterior motives. I think he's also entitled. One of the reasons he was doing the things that he was doing, he wants to get this group together because he had never been played with. He was new in box, so he had never been selected, and he felt like he was entitled to have greatness because he spent his life in a box on a shelf. And at least going to this museum, he's going to have now that position that he feels he is deserved. I know that guy.
True stuff.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, and he does have that kind of air about him. He's better than us, because and he also doesn't have the same life situations or, he hasn't lifed enough.
Now, where this diverges a bit from maybe real life is in the movie, the prospector gets his. He goes away. I think if we were to continue the metaphor in industry, it sort of falls apart because a lot of times those people, we talked about it last week with Tropic Thunder, they fail upwards. Hey, I'm literally going to promote you so that you're not my problem anymore.
Yeah, but
sad that it happens as much as it does.
But do they succeed, right? So again, let's go back to this movie and some of the other pieces that we've covered in the Real Leadership series. Sean, I mean, I'm going to get a little radical. I'm going to use a different L word, right?
Ooh.
You guys have both said it. It's love, right? It's love. It's connection. It sounds soft, but it's actually not. And, the best leaders somewhere inside are either fostering that or they're promoting that or they're creating that within their organization, team, family, you name it. And yeah, some of those people do succeed upward if you count success as, to your point, the title, sitting in the museum in Japan. But there's a lot of loneliness in that for a lot of people, and they will never admit it because that means that, right, they're admitting that they maybe are missing out on some things. But that's the one thing that I kept coming back to in this movie. I'm like, love, right? Love was driving the kind of leadership that I think for the three of us, we hope people can do for themselves. We hope people can show up in organizations leading that way. And it's very rare. I mean, even if you do research on Lombardi, right? Vince Lombardi, complete a-hole to a lot of people, rough guy. He talked about and recognized that love was part of what he was creating amongst those teams that he was leading. So it's cool. And it's also sometimes I think a little bit difficult for people to admit, right? When they don't have that, they're not there, but they've got the title, right? They've got the money, they've got the car. Okay, have it. That's yours, right? So it's kind of I like that you're calling it out because it is reality. Not everybody gets stuffed in a girl's bag with a Barbie next to them, right? To learn their lesson.
That was cool.
That was kind of cool, but it's I mean, for me, I keep coming back to it, right? It's about love. It's about connection. I mean, that drove so much of the behavior that we saw in this particular movie.
Yeah,
good and bad.
Dovetailing on that, you asked us to give one leadership tip to a character in the movie, and mine was for the prospector, and it was don't hold people back from their dreams. For me, you know, I'm the entrepreneur trying to live my dream, and I know, Sean, you're going to have a qualm with my terminology here, but I've had 3 virtual assistants that have left me because they needed to do other things. And it totally difficult for me because I spent a lot of time like getting them up to speed. You know how I operate, you know the type of things I want you to do. And then, you know, just like, and they're gone. And it's like, okay, I know I have to let them go, and we're all still on good terms. But I put a lot of effort into it, and I'm like, no, you're not helping my dream now. So I felt a lot of the prospector, you know, not wanting to let go.
But if they're virtual, were they ever really there?
Believe it or not, I have physically met all of my virtual assistants.
Then I don't think they were virtual. I'm just saying.
I know. And we can argue about this till the cows come home.
I want to go back real quick.
Sean wants to say remote assistant.
There you go. That has a whole other connotation.
It's a real person that just works remotely, but we're not going to litigate that right now. I want to go back to what Brian said a moment ago about those people that they get the title, they get the position, and they are probably still missing something, but they'll never admit it. Look, one of the reasons that I enjoy doing this podcast is because our respective journeys have taught us many lessons, and I like to share some of those lessons with people to maybe help them level set their own expectations, because I know mine were askew. I am of the generation that was told, just go to college. Go to college, they said. Get a degree, they said. Jobs will fling your way, they said, and success will be yours.
And happiness will be there, too.
And happiness will be at your beck and call. And, of course, that's all bullshit. Not that there isn't a path for that, but that is not... There's a lot more to it than that. And so I just want to double down and let the people, the 2 people that are listening, I want them to know.
How about 3? Let's be optimistic.
Do you think we've had some growth? Okay.
Steph may listen too.
You know what? Maybe I need to get a virtual assistant to help me measure the audience.
I can help with that.
I want all 3 of those people to know that those folks that you're looking at in the corner office, in the C-suite, that have the director job, the whatever it is, they'll never admit it. But yeah, they absolutely, in most cases, most likely, are probably missing a little something. And here's why it's hard to admit. This was hard for me to admit. I was one of those people chasing that for a long time. And so I'm also the guy that spent 6 years in engineering school because I spent the first 4 studying the wrong thing. It's really hard once you have invested that amount of time and effort and energy and you've gone all in on something. It's really hard to step back and say, wait a minute, you know what? I did all this work and it turns out this isn't really what I want. That's why I always say don't follow your passion, which is going to be a segue to another character in a minute. But don't that's the worst advice ever. Follow your passion. You're going to end up with a degree in music theory and not play any gigs, and you're not going to have what you need. So follow opportunity, as I was about to call him my friend, but I've never met him, Mike Rowe. As the great podcaster and star of Dirty Job says, follow opportunity, but bring your passion with you. And these people that are at the top, they would never admit it. It was hard for me to admit and then make decisions based on that. Okay, I got to turn left. All this time I've been going right. I should have turned left. That's hard.
Yeah, and everybody's a human being. So the people in the corner office, the people that aren't in the corner offices, I mean, there's a cost to all of it. So there's a cost to getting out of the box, as you both know better than I do. There's a cost to staying in the box. There's a cost to the corner office. There's a cost to not having the corner office. It's just what you decide matters for you. And I think what's interesting again about this movie is Pixar, Disney, they have a very clear idea of what matters. And they try to promote that, and that is connection between people, toys, right? That connection, that love. That's definitely a view of the world. So there are probably there may be the one corner office person watching this. It's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not totally miserable. Yeah, maybe not, right? Maybe they really like some of that, but they also know that being there does come at a cost, whatever that cost is, right? Whether it's time, whether it's family, whether it's a little bit of yourself, who knows, right? But we're all sort of trying to measure that as we go, especially as leaders. It's really interesting. I think people forget that leaders are human beings.
I would put a plug in here, dovetailing on what you said, Brian, for personal coaching or professional coaching, or sometimes, coaches do all that, but looking in on your life and seeing, from an outsider's perspective, why are you doing the things that you're doing? I've been seeing a coach for a little over 2 years now, and he's really helped me focus. So now, like I say to people, I'm building things, designing things, or fixing things, and that's pretty much it. If it's not one of those things, kind of not involved. And that's cleared the path for me from, getting off course and staying focused.
Brian, I appreciate you also maybe tempering some of my comments because
it's not intended that way at all.
Well, because I was going to say, not that there's anything wrong with pursuing that, but it's two things. I guess really is what I'm trying to point out. One is balance. Okay, yes. Everything comes with a cost. I mean, there's a cost to being an entrepreneur. There's a cost to being in the corner office. So, and I say that explicitly because that's not something that people said when they said, go to college, get a job, opportunity will just throw itself at you. So there's balance. And then also just to level set the expectations. Hey, you know what? I'm going to pursue this, knowing that hey, I might get there and figure out that that's not what I thought it was, or maybe my desires have changed. What I was interested in has changed, and that's okay. Where it becomes not okay is when people don't understand that that's how human behavior works, and they've got those expectations, they don't get met, and now we're in a downward spiral. They think they're a failure, or whatever. The system's broken. Maybe they turn into the prospector.
Yeah, possibly.
We don't.
I have never gotten mine, right? To your point from earlier, the prospector's whole mentality is
entitlement.
I deserve whatever I deserve.
Okay, if I may,
you may.
I want to talk about something that seems inconceivable.
Ooh, that was Now there's a reference right there. I like that reference.
I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Inconceivable.
And I don't think the phrase that his character uses means what he thinks it means, but I want to get you guys to weigh in on this. So Rex the Green Dinosaur is voiced by Wallace Shawn, who played in The Princess Bride. and was the guy that said, "Inconceivable." And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch The Princess Bride. We'll probably do that one at some point.
Yeah, how have you not watched that? All three of you.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, all three of...
Come on, you three. Get out
Shame
there.
be upon you. Actually,
Well, I mean, we could send it to them. It's cheap. There's only 3 of them.
when I published my book, the imprint that I used is No One of Consequence. Which, again, if you don't get that reference, go watch the movie. And anyway, Rex the Green Dinosaur. So, I like this character in terms of... It's such a minor character. But I wanted to talk about it. I like it because he says and does some interesting things. First, they're getting ready to cross the street. They get to a point where, all right, now we got to cross the street. And you see all the traffic zooming by, and he turns around and he's like, well, we tried. He's like, that's it. I'm out. Things got hard. I'm done. Go ahead, Corey.
Oh, I'm where are you going with this, Sean?
So then, later on, I think it's when they're on the elevator. I should have written down exactly where they were. But he tells, I think it was Buzz, just believe in yourself. Which I think is like the biggest pansy-ass platitude to just lob at somebody to, like, oh, shit, just that's what I was doing wrong. But also, this is the same guy that literally, because he's a dinosaur, turned tail and was walking the other direction when things got hard. So, discuss.
Well, out in my front yard, I have a sign. You know, they have those signs that say, in this house we believe, so mine starts off the same way. But the last thing is, do hard things. So that's one of the things that I'm instilling in my kids, that yes, it's scary, it's tough, do it. Leadership.
And maybe do it a little more strategically, though, than Buzz does. Buzz rushes in where angels fear to tread.
I will say, like, there's definitely a balance. You know, sometimes you just have to rush in and be like, I don't know what's going to happen, because you've never been in the situation, you know, you don't have any training, you know. And then that's what makes you, oh, I can do this. And then when I see it the next time, I'm ready.
Did you see an evolution in it at all, though, Sean, in this one? Because if you go to the very end of that movie when they're sort of all in the room together and he's playing the video game and he loses, but he's like, oh, I've done this in real life, right? Like, I won the battle in real life. Interesting, right? Like, it's an interesting reflection by him. To your point, this seemingly chicken, you know what, character right throughout the movie. So he's interesting in a lot of ways that you bring up. He's also funny because he always seems, you know, I mean, he's always part of the team. They still find a way to make him useful, or he finds a way accidentally to be useful. So it's kind of interesting call out. But you kind of love those characters too, right? Like, they're kind of lovable in their own way, even though they're a little bit maddening.
I mean, are they?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, one of my favorite moments of the show was when Mr. Potato Head pulls out his ear because he doesn't want to hear the whining anymore. And I was like, that's such a great leadership moment, because sometimes you just need to tune people out while they vent. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I have a friend who's a boss, and he's like, sometimes people come in, they just start talking to me, and I'll start replaying in my head a movie I watched recently, you know, a scene in the movie. And he's like, and I just wait for them to finish. He hadn't heard a word they said, but that's what they needed.
I mean, along those lines, one of my favorite favorite funny lines from this movie is when they're getting ready to go, and Mrs. Potato Head is loading up Mr. Potato Head with some rations, and she goes, "And I packed your angry eyes just in case." I can't tell you how many times I've used that reference in some way, shape, or form, which, if you dissect that a little bit, I mean, that's a very interesting, or not interesting, that's a very valuable skill to have, to be able to compartmentalize. I do it a lot right now, dealing with schools and IEPs and athletic coaches and directors that will all remain nameless. But just you got to be able to go, okay, I'm going to put my angry eyes on for a minute and deal with this, and then I'm going to take them off and we're going to go back to what we're doing. That's really hard to do too.
Yeah.
Word.
So Rex the dinosaur, just closing out on him. I guess I do see, you see some evolution. I mean, the movie starts off again with that scene that's kind of an homage to a Star Wars bit, and what we find out is it's really Rex playing the video game and trying to win as Buzz Lightyear, and he dies in the game, and he's like, oh my god, I gotta figure out how to do this. And so the whole rest of the movie, he finds a book in the toy store, he's reading through that, trying to figure it out, and then he beats Zurg in real life, which leads him, of course, to say that. Again, there's so many iterations of the hero journey going through this movie, which is why I think it's funny and also very intentional on the part of the writers to start off with that homage to Star Wars, because that is like the quintessential hero journey, archetype. So I guess, okay, fine. I like Rex the Green Dinosaur.
Cool.
Okay. Is there anybody else you want to go to?
Yeah, I got a couple things. They kind of center around Sarge. Man, that guy he's on the ball, man. He's always organized and ready. But the interesting thing that I mentioned, or I saw, was he never gave, like, clear tactical instructions. It was just like, go! And it seemed, either he'd been training with them off camera, so they all knew, like, this is situation 12B, and they just went out and did it. But they all seemed to know exactly what to do and exactly the right time to do it. And this was totally unbelievable to me, because that doesn't happen in real life at all. I had an issue this morning where I thought I was being clear on something I communicated to the family, and it was totally jumbled, and I was like, this wasn't hard. But for me, it all comes back to, good communication. You can't be a good leader without good communication.
I see. I'm going to assume that they were such a tight. They had trained so tightly. They were so tight on the mission and what needs to be done that all Woody has to say is, Sergeant, whatever. I can't remember the things he asked him to do, and the sergeant goes, yep, okay, let's go, move out, men. And I don't know, in the military, is that so far-fetched? It's your commanders that are doing all the tactical thinking, and it's the sergeant's job to go and execute what they've said, isn't it?
Right, but still, like, all right, let's move out. Well, which way are we moving?
They already knew, because they
already knew. How did they know? But
look, this.
But
okay.
He didn't even be like situation 12C or whatever.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because this is a conversation that we had recently in the around these parts. I believe that a good coach, is able to see talent and then coax it out of people, so that now the team can be better together than they were individually. And I think what happens a lot of times, and we've kind of talked about this idea of the facade leader, we've talked about, the Buzz Lightyears that don't see reality, but the Michael Scotts, they get lucky enough some of the time. I think there's a lot of people that are coaches, coach, manager, whatever, role you want to give them, but acting in the part of a coach, they get lucky because they had a group of people that came in that were already good, like these army men. They already knew what to do, and so the sergeant's going to look really good because his team is already really good, in spite of the sergeant. Swap the sergeant out with somebody else, they might still be good.
Absolutely. And that brings me to the last point I got from the movie, which was one of my favorite characters was the cleaner. He goes in and paints Woody and gets them all sewed up. And but for me, it just never gets old watching a professional do what they do. So, like you said, Sarge and his troops, man, they just know what they're doing. They're doing it. And you could watch that all day. It's just like, go, and they go and do their thing. I remember, the first time I noticed this was the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, when they're performing at Live Aid, and, they just nail it. And they, I was told that they were like the best event there, and they practiced for it like a lot. I recently went to a Gin Blossoms concert, back in the 90s when they were big. And it was just great to see them, 30 years later, still being the professional musicians they are, putting on a great show. We actually didn't even go for them, and they were the best act there.
That what you just brought up is one of the reasons why I like Live PD. Now it's called On Patrol Live. I used to watch Cops back in the day, but now Cops is boring because it's all recorded. Live PD is the same idea, but it's live. And I've often thought about why do I enjoy that so much? And a big part of it is because I really enjoy watching people that they have very clearly defined processes. They have very intentional training and experience. And so they just go and, okay, problem, good. I got this, and this that I'm going to do. And it's very methodical. And I think that's what attracts me to it. Just like the cleaner, you brought the cleaner up. Yeah, he's got his whole little kit there, and it's got all the things in the compartments. And
I want that box, man.
Right? You push a button and something pops up. And
hey, Sean.
Yeah,
I would be remiss if I don't call out Jesse.
Okay.
And specifically what happens,
right here,
what
Jesse.
you see at the end, right? Yeah.
Yep.
What you see at the end from Jesse, in my mind, is a combination of her own growth and journey, but also the influence of good leadership in Woody and in Buzz. Because if you remember at the end, she's the one when the dog needs to get out, like she takes control, she steps in, she gets it going, all again from a good place, from a trying to help place. And I just think that was kind of a cool little way to you talk about all the different arcs in this movie, but her arc, the way that it sort of wrapped up, I thought was really, really interesting and really powerful, because again, it's about her, but it's also about the influence of these two really good leaders and what that can actually do to somebody like her, to give her the confidence and the ability to just go and do it instead of waiting for Woody or waiting for Buzz. And I thought that was, for me, kind of an underrated, cool part at the end.
True. I for a second there thought that there was going to be a weird love triangle between Woody and Bo Peep and
they're
Jesse.
all off in their they're all in their neutral corners. They're good.
Look, Jesse probably has the most matured progression, evolution, I guess is the right word, through the film, because she starts off, she's been a toy that was loved and that had an owner, and then she was cast aside, and now she has been in the box, in storage, in darkness, and there's some scenes where she's like, I can't go back in the box, I can't go back in the box. And so now she has shifted her focus to, okay, we're going to the museum. We just need Woody, and we're going to the museum, and that's going to be the greatness. And then she gets reawakened, and shifts back. Woody is basically able to now push her through that pain and the hurt that she had from being cast aside. And no, hey, you know what? Come with us. They're going to love you. You're going to be part of the family again. And of course she does it. And then, yeah, we see her. She steps up, lets the dog out. She's got that other mindset.
Yeah.
Again, I think her spirits were crushed before. I know her spirits were crushed before. So, okay, so, I mean, before we leave Jesse, I mean, what was the catalyst for that? What's the message there in real life? Do you need somebody like Woody?
Possibly.
To snap you out of it?
I kept thinking, the old saying, it's better to have loved than lost than never to have loved at all.
Yeah. I think it's a reflection of, again, I'll go back to, since we're talking about it, I think she's a reflection of leadership in many ways, because the way you described her and the way she was at the beginning, I mean, who was her leader? Let's look at who her leader was. It was the prospector. And when she ended up in an environment with a better set of leaders, as it turns out, back to your point about coaches and pulling talent out of people, she's a prime example of that, right? The right leaders pulled out the right things that she had, and she was able to move it forward. So, I mean, for me, she's a clear reflection of how people are led. And again, that's for me was kind of cool to see that change, thankfully, because, had she stuck with the prospector, to your point, Sean, she would have been a little bit cranky, a little bit okay with just I'm staying in the box and, look at me. But she would have missed out on a whole different gear, a different level for herself, which she, again, in my mind, was able to see and get there by the help of those great leaders.
And the wrong leader can be tremendously toxic. I think that is the key takeaway. And just to tie that back into the coaching thing. So yeah, you've got, there's multiple categories here. There's the person who is good at seeing those things and pulling them out of people. There's the people that just get lucky sometimes, but they really aren't very good at it. And then there's the prospectors that are manipulative and toxic and are actively pushing the person in the opposite direction. They're almost trying to push talent back inside of people so that no, we can't have that, because
and it's less of a threat to them then, right?
Because you're right. If Jessie had maintained her values and vision, she would have been like, okay, let me go find another family, because that was great. I really loved that time I spent with, I think her name was Emily, maybe. We're going to call her Emily. But instead, now she's with the prospector, and she would have been prospector 2.0 if she would have stayed there, right? You could see it. For sure. Yeah, what she was already trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we covered everybody that we wanted to cover?
Great discussion.
Yep, absolutely.
So the next movie is going to be an homage to an actor who we just lost. I think it was yesterday, not today. And it is, in my opinion, which is, of course, the correct opinion, it's his best movie. Anybody want to guess?
Well, I mean, Val Kilmer, right? So
obviously, what's his best
Top Gun?
movie? What's his best movie? Top Gun is not his best movie.
Heat.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Oh yeah, man! Tombstone. I'm in. Dibs.
Okay.
All right.
Same time, same channel. We're doing Tombstone next week. Corey the Coasterman. Brian, clever name to be named later. You've got a week to come up with the clever name.
Figure it out.
He could be Brian the Record Man. He's got the records behind him there. Gentlemen, thank you. Good conversation. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Alrighty.